I think it's very, very interesting that when we think about emotions, we think that anger, fear, sadness, disgust, vulnerability, rejection, anxiety, we think that all those emotions are bad. And on the other hand, or on the other side of the spectrum, we believe that happiness, satisfaction, comfort, um, what else? Warmth, contentment, significance. We believe that um, all those emotions are good, but or they're pleasurable. All those pleasurable emotions are good, but I want us to remember that emotions, they're malleable on different sides of the equation, right? So on different sides of the spectrum, you have the zero zone where you are dead. I was just, because you're the first person that has joined, and I'll just do a tiny recap. I was talking about how we have an emotional spectrum of different kinds of emotion. In the middle, we have number zero, which is like the dead zone where you don't feel anything. On the other hand, on the left side of painful emotions, you have emotions like sadness, anxiety, anger, pain, sadness, vulnerability, rejection. Those emotions are painful and are on that side, but we believe that because they are painful, they are bad. On the other side, say, of the plus spectrum, right? Positive. We believe that those emotions are positive and pleasurable, such as love, happiness, satisfaction, contentment, significance, worth, um, a feeling of worth, accomplishment, all those kind of emotions. We believe that because they are pleasurable, they are good. But the thing about it is that all emotions are just what they are. They're emotions. If for example you feel guilty about something bad that you did, for that moment the emotion is good because it is pointing you in the right direction. It's pointing you to the bad or the thing that you did wrong, in order for you to find a way to make it right. If you feel warm and fuzzy inside about something you're doing that is not right, even though the emotion feels good, it may not necessarily be good. Which brings me to our first point. Today we're speaking about anger, real anger management. Today's live webinar is real anger management, and we're talking about causes, symptoms, and strategies for this emotional disorder, because the truth is, it is an emotional disorder when it gets out of hand. So let me just type that and see if I can pin it. The topic, I'm trying to pin it on Instagram. Okay. Does it look pinned? It doesn't look pinned to me. Mary, please let me know if it's pinned. Like I know you can see the comment, but if it's pinned, that tiny icon that shows like a pin, right? If it looks pinned, let me know, please. I keep clicking on pin comment, but it doesn't look pinned. But anyway, anybody that comes in will be able to see it. So let's go ahead and jump in. Anger is normal. It is a part of our lives, but it's not necessarily bad. Like I said, it's part of those emotions that may be painful and not pleasurable, but they are not in and of themselves necessarily bad. And so anger, can keep us safe. If maybe something bad is happening and we need to go into our fight or flight mode, anger can keep us safe. Anger triggers, or anger points in the direction of something that is going wrong. It helps to motivate us towards change. So for example, I am angry that right now I cannot wear, like with all of my heart and soul, I cannot wear a bikini, right? I may be able to wear a normal swimsuit, but I am angry that I cannot wear a bikini and summer is here. So will that anger push me to watching what I eat, going on a major, boot camp, rampage. It's not pinned. Okay, well, it's okay. Anyway, so will that anger push me and motivate me into going on a rampage of, eating really lean and clean, training really dirty, exercising and working out and being like, all up in my grill so that I can get to a position where I'm not angry about whether or not I can wear a bikini? Right? So in some ways, anger can be positive. But you see, anger is a problem or an emotional disorder when you express it through destructive or unhelpful behavior. So for example, if I'm so angry that I cannot wear a bikini right now, and well, maybe I do something like use a knife, a real knife, and cut out my tummy fat. Yeah, that's crazy. That is destructive behavior. But anyway, so that's an extreme case, but anger is an emotional disorder when you don't express it through when you express it through unhealthy or destructive behavior, when it has an overall negative impact on your mental or physical health. Maybe there's something that you're doing that is, or the feeling of anger that is weighing down on your heart. And like I used as an expression, in one of the posts, the person's head, like her head was steaming, but that's how some people really feel when they're expressing or when they're feeling the emotion of anger, that uncontrollable outburst of anger that's like a reaction. Okay. And anger can be uncontrollable or out of hand. Thank you to the person that just joined us on Facebook. If you are there, please just wave at us or send a pin, a comment or something, just so that I can acknowledge you. Okay, so as I was saying, that anger is not a problem, but it becomes an emotional disorder if you're not expressing it in a healthy way. If it becomes your go-to emotion, a way of blocking out other emotions, maybe for some reason, you feel really, really bad when someone says a particular type of comment, something that has to do with your identity, maybe something that has to do with your heritage or your history or something that went on in your family, right? And your go-to emotion is to just flip out, throw a tantrum, be angry, and that's your normal means of expressing yourself. Then it is uncontrollable or it is an emotional disorder, because we definitely need to go to the root of the problem. It's not just anger for the sake of anger. And so I want us to talk about, hi, thank you very much for joining Yetunde. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. So I wanted us to talk about the ways people express anger. In a previous post, when we were promoting this live webinar, we talked about how in 3 ways people can express their anger: by 1, violent external aggression. So somebody is angry when they're screaming or yelling or slamming doors or using abusive or foul language, throwing things, all of that. You can see, it's obvious, right, that the person is angry. Another way could be when the person does not do it obviously, what we call passive aggression, right? Where I am, people say that people in the area where I live, I'm not going to mention any names, but people of this nationality are passively aggressive. So for example, something happens, they're not angry, they're angry, but they will not react to you, the offender. They will go and find a way to either, for example, report you to the police or make you get a parking ticket, instead of coming to you and saying, hey, you're parking in my spot, right? Instead of being direct, they will find an indirect way. Anyway, so let me not talk about them. But passive aggression, doing things like keeping malice, not talking to people, doing your work shoddily. Maybe if it was in a work or a home environment, doing your chores shoddily, or not doing them at all, not speaking to the person that has offended you, or not speaking to people around you. All those are passive aggressive ways of expressing anger. And then you have the way of expressing your anger that is directed at yourself. So that is self-harm, inflicting, abusing yourself, insulting yourself, blaming yourself, right? Trying to harm yourself because you're very angry. You know, when I put out this the post for the live webinar, a number of people actually responded to me and said how for them, they find that they are either clutching at themselves, trying to harm themselves. They have thought about, you know, using a knife to pierce their skin to release some of the tension when they are so angry. And it is true, it is a real emotional disorder when you are either visibly and vocally angry and you take it out on others, or two, you are passive aggressive in your anger, or three, you are trying to inflict harm on yourself. Okay, so those are the three usual unhelpful ways and unhealthy ways of expressing anger. Okay, so let's move on. There are a few symptoms. I mean, as I've described, anger can be very visual, right? Or you can see the symptoms of anger. But let's talk about what anger does to you physically and emotionally. So physically, what we can see, you know, or what is obvious to you, maybe as you feeling the anger inside. You have maybe a feeling of nausea, you feel tense, you feel like your heart is beating uncontrollably. Sometimes you feel leg pain. People do experience it. You feel sweat in your palms or in your feet, or you can see yourself visibly shaking. Sorry, the screen just became blurred. I wonder if it's blurred for you guys on Instagram. The screen became blurred, which is just super weird. Okay, it looks like it's coming to focus now. Yeah. Okay, so all those physical sensations are actual symptoms of anger, right? Of anger that is an emotional disorder, or you feel like a rising of heat from your inside. Some people actually feel like they want to go to the bathroom, right? They actually feel like they're about to have a bowel movement when that uncontrollable anger takes over. It's very, very serious. Thank you, Dr. Buki, for joining. Some people experience dizziness, a banging or a pounding in their head. Some people actually feel that way. But emotionally, in your heart or in your soul, you feel guilty, you feel tense, you feel nervous, you feel some form of irritation or a form of humiliation and shame. Those are some of the emotional symptoms of anger. Is there anyone that is willing to share? Maybe you or someone that you know experiences deep, uncontrollable anger. Thank you, Jeshishion, for joining. I really appreciate you're on Facebook. Thank you very much for joining. So I was saying that, is there anybody that is interested, I mean, is willing to just share some of the symptoms that I may not have covered that you or someone around you experiences, whether physically or emotionally, when you are angry? The point of talking about these symptoms is for you to practice self-awareness. We've spoken about it in so many of our live sessions that, you know, self-awareness and observing yourself is one of the keys, major keys to all-round emotional health. And so in this case, you need to... Hi, Mary. Thank you for joining. Ultimate Health HMO. Thank you very much for joining. So in this case, you need to be very, very self-observant. So you know your symptoms, and you know, it gives you the opportunity to observe. It gives you the opportunity to even journal. It gives you the opportunity to know when something is going wrong or when you're on the brink of that uncontrollable anger. Okay? So let's talk about causes. I mean, causes are kind of obvious. If you're offended, if you think somebody has disrespected you, insulted you, treated you unfairly, said something that is completely bad, or, you know, trash in your eyes, that kind of thing, of course, you will feel angry, right? You will experience anger. But deep-rooted anger, the deep-rooted anger that I'm talking about, that is emotional, is an emotional disorder. Some of it is caused by a feeling or a trigger, such as a feeling of threat, a feeling of being attacked. And I'm not using these words lightly, right? So you feel, whether it's a physical threat or an emotional threat, you feel like you're being threatened or you're being attacked, or you feel frustrated or powerless. Maybe something is going on and you feel frustrated or powerless to do anything about it. That, those are some triggers of anger. But also, it's also dependent on interpretation. So for example, if maybe a protest was going on, right, and people are raising their heads high and raising the roof, and they're carrying placards and all of that, and you say, and you are looking at the situation on one hand, somebody can think that, oh, this is a riot, this is violent, I'm angry about it, why are these people protesting? That can be on one hand. Another person can interpret it that, oh, these guys are protesting about our rights, or something, some form of injustice that has taken place. My point is that interpretation matters in every single thing, even in other aspects of our emotional health, right? So the interpretation matters in the way you receive these triggers, and if you will actually react by feeling and expressing anger in an unhealthy way. There are factors that affect your interpretation, and I'm going to talk about three factors. The first one is your upbringing or your childhood experience or observation. So on one of the comments in I think on my personal page, when I posted this about anger, somebody spoke about 6-year-olds or kids, expressing anger in unhealthy ways. And I was even going to respond to say that dealing with kids and anger is another topic entirely. Like it goes back down to the root. But the point is that kids most of the time model what they see. And so that brings me to our point where if you or someone that an adult, a full-grown adult, is expressing anger in an unhealthy way and it has become an emotional disorder, then it may be likely that anger and angry outbursts were modeled. That is, it was shown and it was expressed in the upbringing or in the family or house of the person in question, and maybe that told him that, or him or her, that such expressions of anger is okay. In other situations, he or she may have been taught that kind of expression of self, or feelings of frustration or hurt, or feelings of being threatened, that kind of thing. Maybe the person is being taught that is not okay, right? That is, you can't express yourself, you can't express your anger in any way whatsoever. So the person now suppresses, in their childhood, suppresses that way of expressing themselves, and then now we're seeing it as an extreme in their adult life. And then the last thing concerning adulthood is, okay, so I said that maybe they saw it modeled, that is an out of controlled way of expressing themselves in anger. They saw it modeled, so they think it is normal. In other cases, they think it is okay. It's been told to them that it's okay. In other cases, it's been told to them that it's not okay, so they suppress it, right? So that is about childhood or upbringing. Another factor that could affect the interpretation, right, that leads us to the emotional disorder of anger, is past experiences. We may have experienced trauma, abuse, or bullying in our lives, whether during childhood, adolescence, or even in recent times. Those kind of things actually cause what could be termed as PTSD. And it is very likely that you are suppressing so much of the pain that it comes out and is expressed as uncontrollable outbursts of anger, whether towards others or to yourself. right? So that's the second factor. The third factor is maybe a current issue. You could be going through something in your finances, something with your relationship, something with your family, maybe some form of grief, because grief does have a way of expressing itself as anger. That kind of pain, you keep it bottled up, and it may lead to this emotional disorder. Okay, so next is we're going to go to anger management. And as I said, real anger management. What we're going to do is, first of all, talk about things you can do in the short term to manage the anger. Then we're going to talk about root treatment. I always talk about it, that dealing with any emotional disorder, you have to get to the root. And then we're going to talk about long-term solutions. Okay, so anger management, the first thing you would say is, as you are observing yourself, remember we talked about self-awareness, you have to be sure of the warning signs, whether it's in your breathing, whether it's the tension that you're feeling in your chest, or it's a tension that, or a heart pumping, excuse me, or sweat in your palms, or shaking, whatever the case may be, you are experiencing symptoms and you need to start knowing and noting your warning signs. When you are able to observe, and sort of like come out of yourself and observe these your warning signs, then it gives you some time to think and to choose your response. So you don't just react immediately based off of what is going on, but you come out of yourself, you can observe and see what your warning signs are, and you have the time to choose your response. And so that brings me to the second point, which is delay, not denial. Whatever it is that could be going on, it may not, just because I'm saying to you that you should delay your response doesn't mean that the thing that is going on is not valid. That is, maybe the thing that is going on is not really offensive, or it's not really annoying, or it's not really a valid cause of anger. Thank you for joining. It may just mean that you need to delay your reaction. So there's some there are some ways that you can delay your reaction. You can count from 10 backwards, right? 10, 9, 8, 7 things, but basically you are calming down. You could try also some breathing techniques. Okay, sorry, I was just looking at something that popped up. You could try some breathing techniques. You can move away, and you can talk to somebody that is unconnected to the situation. That may help to diffuse your anger. I would also like to, as usual, encourage journaling. Maybe something happened at work. You practice your self-awareness, you know the warning signs of the anger, you move away from that situation. You can journal, write it down, record it on your phone, express yourself, but you're doing it to yourself, maybe like with pen and paper, or you're doing it into your phone. But the point is, you're journaling, you are not talking to someone else. Okay, you can also try that. And then the next thing is what Yorubas will call fi ara balẹ̀, meaning farabalẹ̀, meaning intentionally calm down. Well, speaking to somebody that is angry, that word, that expression, that phrase, calm down, it's like adding fuel to the fire. It makes people even angrier, right? But when you're talking to yourself, when you're doing this as a form of self-help to yourself, you need to intentionally put yourself down. Fi ara balẹ̀. Obviously, Nigerians and Yoruba people will understand what I mean, but the translation is for you to intentionally calm down. And you do this, as I said earlier on, with breathing techniques. All you have to do is just Google it. It's not a problem at all. It's just being deliberate about the amount of breaths that you take. You count and you breathe in and out, breathe in and out. It just helps your body to come back down to normal normal processing, right? The other thing is you can actually practice mindfulness. Mindfulness, as I've explained in some of my other live webinars, is where you are concentrating on things that are happening to you. So, for example, you want to try a mindfulness technique, you sit down and you close your eyes. You can listen to the sound of the refrigerator or the sound of the birds outside, or you can, that's with your ears. With your body, you can feel the sensations of your hands, your legs, your chest. If you were eating something, you actually take the time to taste and feel the texture, the juiciness, whatever it is of what you are eating. But the point is that you are concentrating on concentrating your mind on what you are doing, whatever it is that you're doing, and you are attempting to feel with all of your senses what is going on in your body and around you. That really, really helps to calm you down, or to for you to intentionally calm yourself down. You can even tell, right? Just by the example. Thank you. You can tell just by the example I just gave, my voice, my particular voice right now has, it has come down from a bit of a high pitch or tempo, because I am being mindful about the sound of my voice, about the way that I feel as I'm sitting on this couch, the expressions, right? I am mindful. So that is a major way, it's a major technique of intentionally calming yourself down. Thank you, Mrs. CEO, for joining. We've gone far. But I really hope that you're able to catch the webinar, and I may do a summary at the end. Okay, we are currently talking about anger management, which I know that you're interested in, and we've spoken about three, right now we've spoken about three steps, which are: first, for you to observe and be self-aware of your warning signs, whether it's a change in your heartbeat, something in your sweat, palms, feeling of head pounding, an emotional feeling of nervousness or anxiety when you're experiencing anger. We also said that delay may be denial, but not necessarily, because if you are able to know your warning signs, then you give yourself the permission and the time to think and to choose your reaction. So you could practice some breathing techniques. You could count from 10, do a countdown from 10 to 1, move away, talk to somebody that is unconnected. And I said you could also journal your thoughts and feelings. And then what we were speaking about currently was an intentional calming down, what Nigerians will call, or Yoruba people will say, farabale, but not in a derogatory way, but you intentionally calming down. And some of the ways you can do that is practicing mindfulness, practicing breathing techniques, exercising. So for example, I picked up boxing, and it's a great way for you to release tension. I'm telling you, it's a great way for you to release tension. You can just imagine that you are punching the person, you know giving that person a jab, right? The person that may be annoying you, or just to release tension. Exercise is really good. Skipping is really good. Running is really, really good also, to just release tension, make you feel better. All the air comes back to your brain. You can probably think about the situation while you're doing these exercises, and it just gives you a clear head, right? Another way, or another way is for you to find a safe expression. Maybe break some ice in a sink, or punch a pillow, something like that. A safe way of just letting it out. You can also distract yourself with taking a walk, listening to some music, taking a cold shower, doing something with your hands. So maybe you like to cook, or you like to do some form of art of some sort, you just find a safe way to express and to distract yourself. Okay. So let's go back down to the root treatment. We talked about the fact that sometimes anger is triggered by different feelings of threat, of feeling attacked, of feeling like you are treated unfairly. But we talked about the fact that it also depends on your interpretation, right? So your interpretation of what happened or what is happening can lead to whether or not you express that anger in a certain way. So we also talked about the fact that there are factors that will lead to the way you interpret a situation. It could be your upbringing, it could be something that you experienced, whether in your childhood or your adolescence or even in recent past, whether it's a trauma, it's some form of abuse, or it's some form of pain or grief, something that may have gone on in the past or is currently going on. So we definitely need to tackle and go back down to the root. And there are three ways that I would recommend, which would be to overwrite old programming. So maybe it has something to do with the way you were brought up, or the way that, hey, you're laughing at me punching, right? So maybe it has to do with the way that you were brought up, or what was said to be either acceptable or not acceptable in your family, right? You may need to go back and overwrite the old programming. You have to get to the root. I would recommend, if you feel this way, or if you feel like your anger is deeper than just physical flimsy triggers, right? If you know that there's something going on deeper, I would recommend that you speak to a counselor, or a wellness coach, or a psychiatrist. The point is somebody that is qualified to talk to you, or to have you also talk most of the time. Do you guys notice that coaches, psychiatrists, counselors, most of the time, they don't do too much talking. They let you talk. They have questions that will trigger, that will trigger you going deeper into your mind to figure out what's going on and how you can move forward. So anyway, I was talking about I was saying that you'll need to override old programming, because there are mindsets, things that you've been doing for years, and it's not as easy for it to just immediately, or maybe not immediately, but it's not as easy for that feeling to just go away, or that those root causes and those root mindsets that you have to be wiped out. You definitely, most likely, I just said definitely, most likely, but you would definitely need to resolve the effects of past experiences. If you've experienced trauma, pain, abuse of any kind, or bullying, I have that in my notes. Bullying, if you experienced that in your past or even presently, definitely you will need to resolve it within your mind. And also you may need to tackle any current issues. So we spoke about the fact that a factor that could affect your interpretation of something that could be a trigger to the anger is a current experience or a current issue that you're dealing with in your life. And so you will need to also tackle those ones. We're moving on to longer term anger management. As I said before, you'll need to learn your triggers, but you need to know, what was the situation? How did I feel before? How do I feel after? This is where journaling again comes in, because if you are writing down or recording your experiences, things that make you angry, trigger you, what happened before, how did you deal with it, what happened after? Sorry, on Instagram is a bit blurry. I hope it's okay now. Yeah, it looks okay. You will need to be journaling. You need to record these things, and when you record it, then you can see patterns. Yeah, it's almost like a mood diary. Some people call it that. You observe your moods and how you feel and your reactions to different things. When you are able to record, then you can see patterns, and you can, as I said, learn your triggers. And then you're examining your thought patterns. This is very, very important because sometimes people, while they're expressing or feeling anger, they may blame others. They may think that, oh, somebody else should behave better. It's not my fault that I reacted this way. It's because she didn't do the right thing, or he didn't do the right thing, or he behaved in a certain way. Or you say, oh, this person can never do this. This person always does this. You examine those thought patterns and you're thinking indefinite. You realize that you're thinking indefinite. Always, should, never. All those things are definite, but you need to realize that life is not full of definites. It's usually, there are gray areas. There are thoughts and reasons behind every single thing that happens. And so it's very important for you to examine your thought patterns and see how you can break those patterns and find a new way of resolving conflict, whatever the conflict is. I cannot speak to every situation. I can't even speak to a particular situation right now, but it depends on what you've observed as the triggers, the situations, the usual things that happen, and your thought patterns in all of this. That you can get all that recorded and observed by journaling. Yeah. The next thing I would say as a long-term way of managing anger is for you to improve your communication skills. This is super, super important because communication, sorry, give me 1 minute. I need to take a sip of water. We're good on time. Communication to concerning or to somebody that is annoying you has to be assertive. Remember, we talked about 3 ways of expressing anger that are the usual unhealthy ways, which is A, you can take it out violently, verbally on others, or B, you can be passively aggressive, or C, you can turn that pain and anger inwards and try to harm yourself. None of these are helpful ways or, great ways of communicating your anger. Learning to be assertive, that is, to be firm but polite, to express yourself clearly without attacking another person. That assertiveness, because that is what assertiveness is the best way to communicate when you are angry. It takes practice for sure. I mean, it's not every time that you speak up, and you will speak up well, and you will speak up without sounding like you're vexing, or sounding like you're taking it out of proportion, right? But assertiveness is the best way to go because it's great for you know communicating your doubts or your feelings, or your feeling of being attacked, or feeling whatever feeling that you're experiencing, without the person that you're speaking to feeling like they themselves are going to be attacked by you. Okay. And so it also includes active listening, that is, you being attentive to what the other person has to say, what the other person is also expressing, the same way you are expressing yourself. That is super, super important. And then also, when you are practicing assertive communication, you have to be prepared for the worst. It's not every time that a person that you're speaking to will understand your point of view, or even if they understand, they may not agree. Remember, we spoke about it, I think, in our second webinar, about how as when you're reaching or growing in emotional maturity, you allow the next person, or the person that you're dealing with, you give them that opportunity to have another opinion. Everybody is an adult or a human being. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So be prepared for the worst. That is, even if you are communicating well, communicating politely, communicating clearly and assertively, you may not always convince the other person or bring them over to your side. Okay, so be prepared for the worst. There are some lifestyle solutions. Sorry, there's a call coming in. I'm trying to think. You know what, guys? I'll give. Okay, no, the call has gone. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. I was distracted about with that. So there's some lifestyle solutions such as staying away from drugs and alcohol, right? People that, or if you are having an issue with anger, drugs and alcohol, and even some excessive prescription drugs are not the best way to go. You need to stop it. You need, because all they do is amplify what, that feeling and that expression of anger. Okay, it amplifies it in a way that you do not need. Also, exercise. We've spoken about exercise. It helps. Boxing, skipping, running, all those things help to ease tension. Self-care in itself, choosing your food or your eating wisely, because there are connections between food and mood. When you eat a lot of junk food, lots of carbohydrates, things that are high in meat, protein, I'm not dissuading you or pulling you to the vegan side, but all those things have a way of inflaming the hormones in your brain, and it blocks out your ability to control yourself and your reaction. So food has a way of improving your mood. I mean, herbs, fruits, vegetables, all those nice colorful things that we can eat, that we get from Mother Nature herself, they are really good for you, and they help to improve your mood and offset angry moods. Sleep. Get some rest. Get some rest. If you are working on minimal hours of sleep, then it's very likely that you are more susceptible to just overreacting or being angry, maybe not for no reason, but it sort of like multiplies your what's it called, like your level. It multiplies the level of your overreaction. Yes. In terms of treatment, so we've spoken about things that you can do for yourself, right? In terms of treatment, third-party treatment, I would recommend talk therapy and counseling. We've spoken about that before. Speak to somebody that's qualified, speak to somebody that is professional, a counselor of some sort, and then, or a wellness coach, such as myself, a psychotherapist. That is also very recommended. But before you get into any drugs or any as in, because there are mind assailing drugs that are being used nowadays, especially in the field of psychotherapy. Just explore talking and natural ways, which I had listed out before. There's something called cognitive behavioral therapy. It's therapy, but it's like computer based, which is weird, but it's true. It's computer based. It has a way of, like, not has a way, I shouldn't say it like it's magic, but if you Google it, you are able to sit on a computer, go through exercises, word based exercises, where you're examining your thoughts. You go deeper, and you can, to a large extent, by yourself, without even going to a doctor, but it has to be recommended by a doctor. Yeah, by a professional. Before you can have access, but Google it, you'll understand what I mean. Now, for friends and family, that could be, I believe that we are following, right? I'm not getting too many reactions from you guys, but it's okay. So for people, friends and family, that is, if you are a friend or a loved one to somebody that is experiencing emotional disorder, uncontrollable anger of this nature or of this magnitude, I would recommend, hey, okay, thanks. I would recommend that you stay calm. You yourself stay calm. Don't tell them to be calm. Don't tell the person that is angry to be calm, right? Because as I said, what it does, it's like adding fuel to the fire. But you stay calm, and you listen. You open your heart to listen actively, to listen second level, meaning not just about what you think, not what you want to say back in return. actually listen to what they're saying and what they're not saying, their body language, their expressions, facial expressions, all of that. Actively listen, or listen deeply to the person in question. That really, really helps, because when you do that, then you it's not about you, or it's not about how you feel on the other side, but the person that is experiencing this anger, they also have pain. Okay. And then the other thing is, you may need to give them space. You may need to give them space. Maybe if the anger or the outbursts of anger, it's getting a bit out of hand, you may need to give them space. However, you also need to set boundaries. You know what is acceptable to you and what is not acceptable to you. So, as an example, maybe if the person is experiencing anger and the person takes the lamp or the light and throws it, that is unacceptable for sure, right? Well, I mean, based on the boundaries that you have set. So you're able to let them know that, okay, I've established these boundaries. You really can't maybe talk to me like this. I know you're angry or you're upset, but you can't speak to me this way, or you can't treat our children this way, or you cannot, react this way. You set boundaries, what is acceptable to you or your family, people in question, and then help them identify their own triggers, right? So you figure out, okay, what am I, maybe not you, because it may not be you that is causing someone else's anger, but what triggers or prompts them into going into um these episodes of uncontrollable outbursts of anger, right? So observe and know what the triggers are. If you're identifying it with them, make sure that you don't sound judgy or pushy in any way. You don't sound offensive. Don't sound like you're looking down on them and saying, anytime this happens, I notice that this happens. You have to really, really be um deliberate and intentional about showing that you love them, but you don't love the anger. You love them, but not the anger, or not that side of them, or not that expression way that they express themselves. And then get professional help, and help them to get professional help. Maybe if they need to see somebody, make the connection. It's very, very important when you're there to support them. But remember that you cannot help someone that doesn't want to be helped, especially if the person is over 18, right? So, and if it's not an emergency, like maybe he or she doesn't have a knife to somebody else's throat, or is not posing a danger to themselves or to other people, then you can't force somebody to get help if they don't want to get help. You can't talk to the doctor on their behalf. You can't, report the symptoms to for on their behalf, or for them, to a professional. You need to ensure that what you're doing is supporting them to go get that help. Okay. The last thing I would say is, you take care of yourself so that you don't become a victim of that emotional disorder, so that it doesn't affect you negatively. So you ensure that you take care of yourself. If they are getting violent or dangerous, do not confront them. Make sure you have a safety plan. You have numbers that you would call, whether it's 911 or 999, or another part of your safety plan. Maybe if you are living in close proximity with those people, then have a safety bag, have like an emergency bag to quickly pick up, leave the house, a place where maybe you and your children. So I'm speaking to someone, if they're living with somebody that is violent in any domestic way, right? And it's because of uncontrollable outbursts of anger. So always have a safety plan, or a safety plan, an emergency bag, somewhere that you can spend the night away from the house. And that's about it. As I said before, it's unless I speak with you one-on-one, or if you're willing to share what you have experienced, then we'll be able to go a bit deeper. But these are, this is top level anger management, and I hope that this has been helpful to you all. Before we go, I'm wondering if there are any questions or comments. And while I wait for questions or comments, I want to say thank you to everyone that keeps watching. Yay, you're welcome. Thank you, Chama. Thank you for tuning in. And to everybody that will watch the replay, whether on Facebook or on Instagram, thank you very much. I would like to encourage us to go to previous webinars. We've spoken about different kinds of emotional disorders. We've talked about anxiety, we've talked about offense, we've talked about different things. Next week, I believe that we're talking about suicide. I'm sure I'll be able to let you guys know. But if you've been able to identify the root causes, that is the feelings and emotions that are behind the anger itself, because most of the time, like I said before, anger is just a front. That anger is just as a result of feeling some form of pain, a very painful memory, some form of anxiety or sadness or bitterness about something that has happened or something that was said to you earlier on, whether early in life or previously. It could be a recent past. Once you're able to get down to the root, then you may be able to take out those root causes, and that will help you find closure. Because I cannot speak to your personal case right now as per confidentiality, we can take it further after this live webinar. But the point is that you get down to the root cause, things that you have observed, because you may have observed patterns. You know that you get angry when so and so and so happens. And why is that? You know, the more you say, the more you find out why and why and why, you're going down to the root. And when you're able to clear the issues underneath, the underlying, issues, you may be able to find closure. And sometimes you may not be able to find closure with a person that offended you, the offender themselves, but you let it go. When you get to the real root and you're able to dig deeper, talk about the issues and the emotions connected to all those things, it's like an excavation. It pulls out everything and you're actually able to unclog and let it go. We can really talk after this webinar, and you find that when you are free, when you are open, you find closure. I hope, for the most part, that I've answered your question, and let's talk about it offline. I have only 3 more minutes. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. CEO. She says, thank you for choosing this path to wellness and sharing your learnings with us. Thank you. I believe that talking about anger takes away the shame, correct? And that comes with being honest about dealing with anger management. That's very correct. Okay, yes, that's very correct. The more we're able to talk, but in calm, assertive ways, and the more we are able to open up about any form of emotional disorder, it takes away the sting, it takes away the shame associated with it. There's no need to feel ashamed. It's like having a headache. Really, are you going to be ashamed that you have a headache? You have a headache. It's a headache. You didn't cause it or bring it on yourself. It's a headache. The point is you need to find the solutions, long-term solutions to whatever it is, even emotional disorders, because they take root in your life. I think we're done.